As I said, the session will be recorded. We will make it available online afterwards on our community page. We do that with all of our webinars. So if you haven't attended before and you're curious to see what other type of webinars we've covered, then you will find them on our community. I'll show you in a few moments how you go ahead and find those and where you can find those later on in today's session. So what are we going to do today? How is this going to work? So we're going to do a live session here today in the sense that I'm not going to present any slides or anything like that, like I normally would. I'm just going to go straight into a live demo. I'm going to show you a couple of things around how you can adjust any small issues you may have and rectify those for yourself, or how to check small things within the client, like how do you check your files that are being backed up, how do you add or remove files from backup, and small little things like that can sometimes catch us because we don't remember them because we haven't done them in a while, and also just in case we've never had to do them before, which is obviously always the hope in terms of error messages and stuff like that. For those of you, again, who haven't joined us before, my own name is Niall Fahy. I am the technical trainer and learning development person for Mozy. So I look after all the internal and external trainings for the Mozy organization. I'll take you through this today. As I said, I'll take it as nice and slow. If you do have questions, please do ask them and I will get to them as soon as I can. I do have one or two questions that have been asked prior to the session that I will try and answer as well also. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go in here to my virtual machine. I just want to make sure if there are any issues with the audio or if you can't see the screen, just let me know. Okay, so what we're going to look at here first is we're just going to look at the client, how to open it up, how to look at where you would see an error message should something go wrong. I suppose, should anything go wrong in the backup, where would you see it and how would you identify that? So what you need to do first, obviously, is what you'll see sometimes is if you have this status window set to pop up after the backup, what you can do really quickly to figure out what's happening is you'll see here, it'll tell you when your last backup ran. Okay, it'll show you when your last backup ran, and it'll generally tell you then to the right here, it will give you a hyperlink, and these hyperlinks, anything that's generally highlighted blue like that and becomes underlined when you hover over it, that will open up. That will help to open up the article behind that. So generally those will open up a new window either in the client or they'll open up a new web browser window. Okay, so what you want to do then, so is if your backup hasn't run for whatever reason it may be, you can just click on details here, and what it will do is it'll open up this history window like this. This history window is similar to the one that you'll see within the client configuration when you're setting up your backups and so forth. So what you'll see in here is information about the backups that have happened. Okay, so you can click on any one of these and it will give you information in the panel below if there is information available, obviously. As you saw with the previous one there was no file selected, so there was no information to be giving me. But in the next backup, you can see I had 30 files selected. This was the size of the backup. The duration, it ran for 2 minutes. Okay, and it was a manual backup. That means that I clicked the start button myself. Okay. What you'll see then over to the right here is some useful information. Okay, if the other details here will give you some information about what happened to these individual files during the backup. If you click on other details, like so, it will organize the files that have messages next to them. Okay, so you'll see here on the files, it will say other details, and it's telling you here basically that you removed these files from backup. When you ran this backup, what happened was these particular files were removed. Now, it does give you the warning that they're restorable for 90 days. Now, that 90 days is for Mozy Pro customers and for Mozy Enterprise customers. Our Mozy Home customers have a 30-day restorable window. Okay, so all that's doing there is just telling you it's removed, but it's still on our servers should you need to restore it for the next 30 or 90 days. The reasoning we do that is that sometimes files can get deselected or they can get removed from backup accidentally. And we don't want a scenario where it gets accidentally removed and you have to where it gets accidentally removed and you actually then lose out on those files. We don't want a scenario like that to happen. So what we do is they're marked for deletion on our servers, but they're still available to restore for the next 30 or 90 days for you. So you can see here, you can check the information on the backup. It will tell you the file. It will give you the file's path. Okay, so where it is on your computer. Okay, so this is the path name on your computer. So this will tell you where the actual file resides. And you can check those paths. If you open up My Computer, rather than going to Documents, okay, open up My Computer, and if we make this a bit smaller here, we open up our C drive, go to Users, Admin, and if we open up Favorites, okay, so in here is where most of these reside. Okay, so MSN websites, so you can see there, MSN Autos, MSN Sports, MSN Money. So these are kind of default Microsoft websites that they're saved in your favorites. So that's where you can get information as well about particular files. It might be that you're having a particular file might be actually having an issue with the actual folder location or something like that. Okay, so you can get that basic information there. You can see maybe there's a particular file that's having an issue. You can then look at that file and see if it's the particular file causing the issue with the backup. Okay, but it also allows you that if you should have to contact support, that you can then direct them and knowledgeably say, well, I've looked at my history and I've seen that this file is having a backup issue. Other details over here can give you things like, the file was skipped because we couldn't access it. There may be other error information that you can get from there. So up above here, then you will have, if a backup finishes, obviously this one has finished in a success, and I can see what it is. Okay, I can see the files and everything that's happened. What happens if I get an error message? Okay, if I'm getting an error message, how can I check that? If you open up again the history tab here and you click on the backup, you'll see here again we have these blue hyperlinks that we mentioned a while ago. If we click on the hyperlink, I'm just going to open it up here, okay, it'll open up our knowledge base. Okay, obviously I've opened these already just to make sure, so we're not delayed or anything like that. But what it'll do is it'll automatically open up the relevant knowledge base article for this issue. Okay, so what's happening there then is it's telling you why the common reason for this error message, okay, and what you can do just to rectify it. Okay, so cancel errors can be kind of common for us in Mozy. They can happen from small things like closing. If you're using a laptop, you close the laptop lid. If you're on your PC or your laptop, that this machine goes to sleep. So these are kind of common things that could happen. And because Mozy is backing up using the internet to our servers, if anything should happen where the internet connection drops, you'll generally get a kind of a cancel error. Okay, and all that means is just that there was something happened whereby the backup was prevented from happening. Okay, Here you'll see it'll give you a breakdown for the Mac steps and the Windows steps. Okay. Now, bear in mind, these knowledge base articles are the general scenarios. Okay, so these would be kind of steps to take, the very basic first steps to take. 99% of the time, they will resolve the issue for you yourself. Okay, so that you will be able to follow these steps and be able to resolve the issue yourself if you feel you would like to give it a shot. If these basic steps don't resolve the issue, then that's the point where we go to the next step, which would be contacting support. Okay, so we know ourselves, and that's I suppose the reason for today's session is to show what are the small things you could do yourself without having to take up extra time with contacting support, because it can take extra time contacting support, and sometimes we just don't have the time to do that. So these first steps are always useful. And also, if you do contact support and you have carried out these steps, point it out to them. Tell them, okay, look, I have done the basic steps. I've done the steps in the knowledge base article, and I have carried them out and it's not rectifying my backup issue. So what are the next steps we can do? Okay, so tell them straight up off the bat that you've done the basic steps, so they don't try and give them to you again. Okay, so that can be your first step. But the steps that are here will go through step by step what you need to do. Okay, in my instance here, what I actually did was something that can happen from time to time on users' machines. Okay, and that is that you might see a cancel error 1, and you might see that the start button on your status bar here will be grayed out, so that you wouldn't be able to start a backup. And that commonly can happen if something has stopped the Mozy service. Okay, for whatever reason may be, something may have come in here and stopped this service. Okay, and it can happen on occasions, and all you would need to do, so I'll just show you here what happens if we stop the Mozy service. Okay, so this is stopping the service. It would be, what it's doing is totally terminating everything that's running for the Mozy service, so that it's no longer going to be workable. You'll see the backup button is now grayed out, and I can't start the backup. It's also, just because the start backup here is grayed out, it doesn't mean that it's just limited to me starting a manual backup. It would be the same as well if I had scheduled or automatic backups set up. Okay, so all you would do there is you come down to the start programs. Okay, in the search bar here, you would type services. Okay, and if you right click on services and run as administrator. Okay, and that'll open up the services window. You'll scroll down, you'll see there's a load of other services here. They are all the programs, a lot of the programs that run on your machine. And all you can do here is check if they're started. Okay, and what you do is you click on the Mozy Pro backup service or the Mozy Home backup service that you may have, and just click start. It'll start the service again for you, and if you come back to the status window, you'll now be able to start a backup. If the backup button isn't grayed out and you just have a cancel error 1, what you can do, the simple solution there, is just to start the backup again and see if it runs. Because it may just have been that you lost internet connection, or the computer went into hibernation or sleep mode. A good rule of thumb is that if you do see an error message, an individual error message in here, or the same error message repeated, and you were, say, running automatic or scheduled backups, it's just come back to the status window here and start one backup yourself to see if that error message continues. Because sometimes, especially with cancel errors and sometimes with network errors, what it can be is that you just may not have had an internet connection at the time it attempted to run a backup, for whatever reason that may be. But you can narrow it down to make sure that it is definitely a legitimate issue for yourself if you're here and you run a start backup. So that's kind of cancel errors are kind of some of our kind of more frequent error messages that we'd see. Other ones can be things like network errors, as I mentioned. Again, what I would do is I would just start a backup here, see if it's running. If it's not and it's returning you a network error, obviously the first troubleshooting step you could do is something very, very easy, and that is just open up an internet browser and go to Google, go to Yahoo, go to any website really, open it up and see if it'll load. If it's not loading there, then it may just be that you're not connected to the internet or that your internet connection may be down. Common causes of that may just be that your Wi-Fi, you're too far away from your Wi-Fi modem. So I know for me personally at home, my Wi-Fi modem is down in my front room, and in one of the bedrooms upstairs, it doesn't work because the distance is too great. And that can be an issue as well sometimes. You may notice this yourself if you're on the Wi-Fi and when you step out into the garden or you step outside your front door, sometimes it might not work. Okay, and again, that's due to the thickness of the walls possibly, or the distance you are and the obstructions between you and the Wi-Fi modem. If you're on a hardwired connection, so if you've plugged a wire into your computer and you're getting issues, again, what you can do there is you can check if the actual modem again, maybe the power has gone off on that socket, maybe that has been switched off for some reason. These are kind of some small things that you can quickly check that will take you a matter of seconds to rule out and strike out, so that you know when you're speaking, if you have to go to support, what may be the issue. And one small one that I got caught for myself stupidly one day is I was moving my laptop and I had a switch on for Wi-Fi. There's a hard switch on the outside of the laptop for Wi-Fi, and I switched it to off, and I couldn't figure out for a few minutes because I started trying all different things first without checking the most simple one first, which is to switch on the manual switch for Wi-Fi. Yes, that did happen to me, and you're probably worried about me giving you tips right now, but don't worry. So that can happen sometimes. It's small things like that, we overlook them, and it can be the issue. So in networking of issues like that, the easiest thing to do all the time is making sure that you have a network connection. You can do that down here. Okay, you can check your internet connection to see if you have an internet connection. Okay. You can obviously making sure you're not too far away from your modem or anything like that, and then just going something simple like opening up Google, or opening up your internet browser and opening up Google. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is I suppose things like the file selection and options within the file selection, options within the configuration that can sometimes cause issues. Okay, and I'm going to go for another 10 minutes here on the couple of things that I have listed here, and then I'm going to switch over to the questions that are kind of popping up in here. So don't worry, I've seen them, and I'm going to give the last 30 minutes or the last half hour of our session over to those questions, and I'll go through each of the questions that have been posed, just in case you're worrying. I haven't forgot. So options. So opening up the configuration window. Okay, let's say a good question I was asked before we started today, was emailed to me, is how do I know which files are being backed up? Okay, so obviously you can go into the configuration window. I could say you can go into the configuration window and you can look in here and it will tell you which files you're backing up. Okay, so let's say for example, it'll tell me here which files are selected for backup, but how do I know they're actually being backed up? Well, if you open up the status window, okay, so again, if you remember, you right click here and you hit status, it will open up the status window. This here, again, will tell us which files have been backed up. So if we click on that, it'll actually list here the files that are being backed up, okay? And if you've added new files to the backup and we haven't run a backup yet, then what you will see is on the right hand side, this window will split in two. So what will happen is down the middle here, it'll split it to files backed up and files awaiting backup over here. And that will just show you the files that are selected for backup. They haven't been backed up yet, but they're awaiting the next backup to start. So generally, what you'll see in there is, in that listing for files awaiting backup, is things like changed files that have changed, files that have been selected for backup, so like new files, okay, so things like that. And that's what you'll see there. So that's a good easy way to check, okay, in terms of what files are backed up. Okay, so again, you just open up the status window, okay, and you can click on it there. Or if you want to do it directly from the status window, it's here, view backed up files. So that will bring up the listing of the files that you want to see that are being backed up, okay? And then going towards selection of files. So sometimes, you may have files that are added into your backup that you may not, I suppose, you may have added files to the backup, or there might be files in a location that you don't want to back up and you may want to remove them. Okay, so again, if you need to open up the configuration window or the settings window like this, it's just down here in the right hand corner. Okay, so this is a Windows machine. This is a Windows virtual machine. So it is just a Windows machine on the screen here. Okay, and on the right hand side, down in the system tray here, okay, so down by your clock, you'll have a Mozy icon like this. If you're using Mozy Home, the difference will be that these green squares here on either side will be just orange. Okay, you just right click on that one and up you go to the status window. Okay, that'll open the status window there, from where you can open then up the settings window, which is what we're looking at here. Okay, if you want to open up the settings window from the icon down here, what you can do is just go to settings and more settings. Okay, but sometimes the status window can be just a bit quicker because it'll give you quick links to things like the settings, files backed up, the restore files, or even just to start the backup again. So you've now looked at, say, your backups. You want to add a couple of files in, or maybe you just want to remove some files. So what can you do? Okay, so you have two options here. You have two options here. So you have your backup sets and your file system tab. Generally, if you have a lot of files the same, I'd kind of recommend using the backup sets. The reasoning being there is that the backup sets will look for files that match them in all locations on your machine. So let's say, for example, this backup set here is for word processing documents. If I right click on that, okay, and hit edit backup set, it'll open up the rules that are based behind this backup set. Okay, so we can see here that what's happening is that this backup set is searching my entire computer, okay, and what it's searching it for is not just .docs, but it's searching for a wide variety of Word documents. Okay, so TXT documents, rich text files, and a variety of other like .docx, .docm, and there's other word processing files in there. So what it's doing is it's searching for all of those, okay, and it's putting them into my backup set. What that means then is that with one click, I can select all these files, okay, And then the added benefit comes by saying that any file that I now create, so let's say I go and create a new Word document and I save it on any location on my computer, what will happen is that because you've this backup set selected, the Mozy system, the Mozy file filter will pick up that, okay, well, this file matches the rules for this backup set, so I'm going to add it into the backup set. That means when I create the file, so I create the new Windows Word document file, I save it, it gets picked up here and gets added into this backup set, and then for the next backup, it's picked up and it's backed up and I don't have to worry about it. So often you may have heard of the term set and forget. So that would be very much this scenario here where you select your couple of backup sets for the kind of the types of files and folders that are common to you throughout your entire computer, and you can select those and run the backup. So you only have to select them once, hit OK down there in the bottom right hand corner, and the backup will run going on, and going forward, any files that you add into any of these locations will be automatically picked up. Okay? You can create your own backup sets also. So these are some default backup sets that are provided by Mozy, and these are kind of the common kind of things that people will look to back up. Okay? But you can create your own ones as well. If you just right click in the white space here and add a backup set, here you give the backup set a title, so we'll say Webinar 101, and then we select our search location. So if I was to have a couple of more hard drives, I could actually select additional hard drives. Okay, so what I can do is I could select just the C drive. If I had another hard drive on there, I could select just the hard drive. But in this instance, because I only have one hard drive on my computer, which, by the way, would be very common for a lot of people's computers, it means that once I select the hard drive here, it's just going to select my entire computer. I then add a rule. I can do that by file type, by file size, by last modified, by created. And if you want to play around with these backup sets, then you can find some really good knowledge base articles at support.mozy.com. And I'll quickly have a quick search in a minute when I pull up the support website. I'll pull it up for you in between answering some questions, and I'll reference back to it to where we cover it here in a second. Okay, so you can add backup sets. The backup sets here. If you want to remove a file from backup, again, if you have a backup set selected, but there's particular files that you don't want to include, you can just deselect them. But the backup set itself is still selected, and any new files that match the backup set rules get selected going forward. Okay, and again, that's the kind of really big advantage of the backup sets. Okay, the file system tab here, you will see and you'll notice that there's files selected as well already. What's happening there is that any backup sets that you've selected here and any files that are selected, obviously because of those backup sets, will show here in the file system tab as selected also. Now, it's not using the storage space twice, it's just showing you in two different ways. Okay, so there's no scenario where you could be using twice the amount of storage. Okay, so if you've 5 gigabytes of data selected over here, and it's showing you what files they are and the 5 gigabytes that are selected, over here it'll show you files selected, but again, it's still the same files. It's just showing you in both locations so that you can choose which type of file selection you want to do. The file selection and here, when you go to actual file selection, is individual files and folders. What I would recommend is that if you are using this option, okay, you'll notice here that if you do want to use the file selection option here under the file system, you'll see here that there's a grayed out box here behind the tick mark. Okay, and when we hover over here, you'll see what it'll tell me. It tells me that some of the items in this folder will be backed up, and new items in this folder may be backed up by other backup sets. Okay, so what it's saying there is that if you have a backup set selected on the other side, there's a chance that some of the files in here might be picked up by it, but not all of them are guaranteed to be picked up. So if you have a specific folder that you want selected, okay, then, or if you want a particular folder selected, what I would recommend is that what you do is you click here. So unclick the box. So, okay, click on the folder. You'll notice that now the background is white, okay? And you'll notice this little green check mark is turned up here next to the desktop icon. If you go over here now, you will see that all these files are now selected, okay? And if we hover back over it again, it tells me that new items in this folder will be backed up. So what we're doing there is we're saying specifically is that I want this folder backed up. And that means everything that's in this folder and everything that I may add to this folder at a future date. And that's what that green check mark does there. Okay? And if there's particular files in there currently that you don't want, get that green check mark and just deselect the ones you don't want. Okay? It's still going to back up the other files here that are selected, and we still have the green check mark, so it's still going to back up any files that we select and save in there in the future. Okay, so that's in terms of how you can add files and remove files. Okay, and there's a specific webinar on file selection and so forth like that. If you're concerned about what you should be selecting, and you don't know, you're unsure of what files I should be selecting, well, I give you two scenarios. For a home customer, what I would often say to a home customer is, what is priceless on your computer? You know, generally that can be probably things like family videos, family photos, maybe family finance documents, and things along those lines. Things that you can't easily replace. They're definitely where you should be starting to select your files for backup. And sometimes when you think it in that way, it can give you kind of an idea of what kind of additional stuff you should be selecting. From a business point of view, I would say to you, where you should start from is that if I was to take your computer off you right now and give you a blank computer with just an operating system on it, what are the files and folders that you would need to be able to continue to do your job? And that again will get you thinking about what kind of things that you need. Okay? Just in terms of options, things just to be aware of, things like scheduling. Okay, the parameters here, if you're setting up automatic backups, those parameters will have to be met for the automatic backup to kick off. If you are running scheduled backups, I would recommend having this option checked. That's just in case that you should, for any reason, not have the computer connected to the internet when a scheduled backup is supposed to start. What will happen then is that the next time you power on the computer, it will attempt an automatic backup to make up for the scheduled backup that was potentially missed. In performance, if you are using the throttling parameters, if you wish to limit the amount of bandwidth that you give over to the backup, so some people like to do that, as you can see here, between 9 AM and 5 PM, so general business hours on a Monday through Friday. That just means that you will only give a certain amount of the bandwidth that's available, so the internet connection speed that is available, you're limiting the amount that you're making available to the backup process. If you are doing that, obviously just be careful of, the differences here is that it'll only do it for these periods. If you select always throttle, that means that it will always, no matter what time of the day or day of the week, it's going to throttle it. And just be careful then that you don't obviously go all the way down here. That may seem like a very obvious thing, but I have had scenarios where that has come into support, and people have selected that. And what's happened is they may have had it set up like that to don't back up between business hours, and then have accidentally selected always throttled and moved on to something else. Okay, so just be careful of that. Network tab here will show you if you want to blacklist any networks. Okay, so if you didn't want to use a particular network for any backups, then you can select that. Let's say, for example, maybe you're in a coffee shop and you don't want to use that internet connection for running a backup because you're using it to browse the internet or answer some emails and you don't want to clog up the little bit of bandwidth that you already have. Okay. The last thing I just want to show you, and I realize I'm after running over what I said I would finish at, just really quickly, is just the option here to actually analyze your own log. Okay, so your own log file. Okay, what you do there is if you just come to support.mozy.com, and in the front tile window, you'll have Analyze Log here. It'll open up the Analyze Log page, okay, as we saw there a second ago, and you can upload your log file. For Windows users, if you want to get directly to it, you want to get directly to your log file, okay, if you open up your computer, you can go to the C disk, program files, Mozy Pro, inside the data, and that's where the file is there. That's your Mozy Pro log file. All you do then is you just drag it across into this box. If that's not working, you can just try the simple upload form here, and that will give you a browse box like you would get with adding an attachment to an email. So just a browse box like that, okay? And then you upload the file and it will give you a log report like this, okay? And what it'll do here is it'll pull out some of the error messages, it'll give you the information on your machine, and it will give you some KB articles relevant to the issue, okay? And obviously then your last option, if you need to, if it's something that you can't resolve yourself and you've attempted some of the basic troubleshooting steps, then My Support, log in, and you can open a ticket, a live chat with an agent, and they can start working the case for you and assisting you in the process. Okay, so I'm going to finish there. If there are any questions, please pop them into the question box. I'm going to begin to start answering the questions that have been put in already. If there's anything I covered, and I know I covered a lot there, and it was quite quick. If you'd like me to address anything that I've already covered there again, just pop that in as well, and I'll answer those as I can. And again, don't forget that this session will be recorded, and we will be sending out the link to the recording once we have it hosted on our support website. Okay, so just going to get to the questions here, so just bear with me. Okay, so the first question we have, so from Karen, is if my computer crashes and I have to get a new computer, can I use my last Mozy download to load my new computer? So yeah, so what you can do is when you get the new machine, obviously it's going to have the operating system and all that kind of stuff on it already. But what you can do is once you open up the new machine and you're connected to the internet, you can log in, okay? You can log into the Mozy website. You can begin a restore from there. Okay, if you're not familiar with how to do it, if you're not familiar how to create a web restore, then again, if you come to our community or even our knowledge base, so if we just go back here, downloads here, okay, obviously we'll give you the first, what that'll do is it'll give you the downloads for the actual software if you need it, okay, so that you can download it onto your machine. And while that's downloading, then you can create a restore. So the restore one is here. It's also on the home page, and then it will give you some knowledge-based articles about how to do it. And it will then as well, there's the videos there and video tutorials about how to actually go about downloading the files. Okay, and all you need to do then is download those files, and they'll download onto your new machine. You can install the software again, and you can start backing up your new machine. Okay, I hope that answers the question for you, Karen. Just let me know if there is anything you want me to go back over. Okay, so I just have another question here. Okay, Carolyn, so I'm just looking at your question here, Carolyn, and you seems like you're getting an account error 5, and that's due to you changing the computer name. Okay, so just to check, have you, when you changed the computer name, have you rebooted your machine since you changed the computer name? Um, if you have, then we'll probably need to do some more troubleshooting on that. And what I will do is that you should have my email address from the invitation. If you can email me directly, okay. If you can email me directly and just copy in the question that you have here and the email address for the account, what I'll do is I'll get a support agent to reach out to you and begin troubleshooting that issue for you. It's nothing serious. It's just probably that the software itself hasn't updated with the new computer name. So we'll just get that rectified for you. Does that sound like an okay plan for you? Perfect. Thanks, Carolyn. So Sue, yeah, so your question is, if you're on Mozy Home and you don't restore some files from the old computer within 30 days, are they lost forever? Okay, so if you have backed up files with us and you've removed them from backup, then once they're removed from the backup, yes, there is a countdown of 30 days before they're removed from our servers. If these are files that have been continuously backed up with us, then they'll be still there. Okay, so if you haven't deselected them from backup, then the files will still be there. It's only the scenario. So it's only the scenario where you're not backing up the files. If you want to just ping me, I'm going to ping you privately, and if you want to give me the email address tied to the account, I'll have a quick look at it. So are there any other questions? Yeah, so great question, Karen. How can you stay informed of any additional webinars? So our webinar invitations go out in the newsletters. So they go out once a month. So I will be scheduling the next. Webinar in the coming days, and that will go into our newsletter. And generally, what I do is I target the end of the month, the last Wednesday, generally at the end of the month. To do the webinars, and that's just primarily because the newsletters go out the week before that. Okay, and that's where you will see the invitations is inside in those newsletters. I hope that answers your question. And I have got your email address now, Sue. If you just bear with me, I will have a quick look and see if we can't. Just want to be sure the information I give. So What I generally do is, what I'll do is that if you can't attend the seminar, I would just recommend that you register for it. That way, I can look. I can look at the registrars list, and what I generally do is I just take the emails out of that and I send the link. If you can't, if you don't want to register for it, what you can do instead is you can just go to support.mozy.com. If you go to the community, okay. If you go to community, and if we just scroll down here and go to open up tutorials, click in here in webinar, and you'll see the backlog here and the catalog of our webinars that we've run previously. Okay, so that's where you could go if you don't want to register. If you want to register, please by all means do. What I generally do is I work off the list from the register, because I don't want to be sending a mass email out to absolutely everybody, because not everybody would have an interest in the webinar topics. So if a topic interests you and you want to, do register for it. And what we can do then is just send you, what I'll do then is I'll send out the link to the recording. And the recording then is generally probably the week after the session runs. It's just so that we can format it and put it up onto the website. So I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions people may have? Okay, so I'm just looking at your account here, and I'm just going to send you a quick message in the chat in relation to it. It looks like you have 2 machines still on your account, so you should still be able to access the files. Okay, so are there any other questions? If they're not, if you don't have any, and if there's no other questions, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank you for joining us to hear it this morning. I know it's probably not an ideal time for some people. I know it's probably during work hours for some people. It's just to try and get I suppose the most available time for everybody. So that's why we run it at 9 a.m. on the West Coast, so that we can cover so basically we can cover the entire world and cover all time zones by doing it at this time of the day. But again, as we said a while ago to Karen, that if you do anything takes your fancy in the future in terms of the sessions that we're running, do just register for them, and I will send out the recording to those people who have registered once it's up on our site. Again, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all again on our future webinars. I will be staying here, keeping the line open for another couple of minutes if you do have any additional questions.